What's up everyone, I'm Tony Carbhall. Today we're going to be talking about the 2024 Kawasaki ZX636. As some of you guys know, I recently just got my hands on this bike. As most of you guys know, nothing stays stock for too long around here. This video is going to be a few-part series. We're going to take a brand new Kawasaki ZX6 and we're going to turn it into a stunt bike. I'm going to show you guys what that entails, but for now we'll do the big reveal of where we're at so far with the build. Not your typical motorcycle unveiling, but I wanted to spare you guys the trouble and show you guys just where I'm at with everything. I tore everything down. We're down to the bare bones of everything. I'm going to show you guys the step-by-step process of what it takes to build basically a stock bike into an absolute stunt weapon. So far this thing is nearly 100% factory with the exception of an exhaust pipe. Just a slip-on. I just stripped down all the bodywork. Took it down to bare bones. Everything's exposed, so we can get to everything that we need to get to. So I'm going to show you guys everything that I modify starting from the ground up. We'll start with the frame, we'll work our way up. We'll get to the cooling system, we'll do brakes, controls, airflow, do the wiring. We're going to fix this weak subframe issue, eventually get the body back on this thing. So I personally like to keep a little whiteboard list so I know everything I need to run through step by step, and I can eliminate things as I go. Sorry for my crappy handwriting. First thing we're going to start with is the swing arm. We'll work our way to chain and sprocket, handbrake, brake calipers, cooling systems. So the stock swing arms on these Kawasaki's are paper thin, and a lot of the tricks that we end up doing on these things puts a lot of stress, a lot of flex on them. The brake tabs start to break off. Yeah, I've even seen just people break swing arms completely off the bike, which is crazy. The wheel takes a lot of impact. It's just a ton of force, and so we have been reinforcing these swing arms and just beefing them up and just getting them ready for battle, pretty much, just to make them as strong as possible. Make sure the brake tabs are going to hold tight, they're not going anywhere. We're also, I'm running 8 pistons just for my handbrake and another 2 piston just for my foot brake, so it's a lot of stopping power that is all being held by one little tab that mounts to the side of the swing arm. And so it's pretty important to reinforce that kind of stuff and just make sure nothing is just going to tear away. My good buddy Bob over at Hey Weld, he helped me produce a swing arm that is nice and beefy. It's got like cheese grater holes in it. It's kind of funky looking, but it's kind of cool at the same time. So it does the job. I've been running it on my other bike for a couple years now, and don't get it twisted. Bob is the only guy that produced this swing arm. He was the first guy to make it. Other people have been out there trying to copy it and everything, but Bob is really good at what he does. So I highly recommend going to him if you're going to get this done. Here it is. This thing's got welded bungs. So basically just supporting everything from one side to the other instead of it just being hollow in the middle. So gusseted. Reinforced brake tabs, so this thing should eliminate a whole lot of flex that was happening in these areas here. Brake tabs should hold nice and strong. I don't know, I think it's pretty. It's kind of fun looking. We'll get this thing mounted up, put on the bike, swap out the old one, probably even send the old one out to get done just like this one. So a lot of things are going to have to move out of the way in order to pull this swing arm off. I'm going to spare you guys a lot of the mini details. It's mostly just to show you guys the process of the build, but not necessarily all the minuscule details of wrenching. So I'm going to get a lot of that stuff out of the way. Boom. This is kind of what we got going on. So hopefully things are nice and stable. It's a tricky job to do all by yourself. Now we'll start working on getting the actual pivot bolt loose, some of the rear shock mounts loose, and get this thing out. So here's the moment of truth. We got to get that rear stand out from under the swing arm and hope that the bike stays up on its own. The last time I did this, things didn't turn out so great. Bike ended up falling over, and I learned a lot from that, but thankfully it was my other bike and it was already fully set up, so it had a crash cage and everything on it. I think it did put a good dent in my flooring here, but everything fared pretty well. It was a pain in the ass to get it back up on my own, but we got it up, got the job done. And like I said, I learned a lot from that. So hopefully we got some good support here with the front, and everything will stay put. Let's see what happens. Woo, that's a good thing. All right, now we should be able to pull this shock down from here. Boom, easy as that. Not really. So we have this little mod that we do with the rear shock linkage. We space this guy down. So what this does is this just takes a lot of the sag out of the rear. It raises the rear actually. Takes a lot of the bounce out of the rear shock and stiffens it. So a lot of the transitional work, the clutch work, you know, when you stall in a circle or you transition to a different trick, it really just takes a lot of the sag out of the rear and makes those transitions a little more seamless. I was a little skeptic when I first heard about it, but I decided to give it a try. I run it on the other bike and I really seem to like it now. Alright, so here's our OEM factory spacing. Just at 2 millimeters. The new spacing, right about 13 millimeters. I know it's probably hard to see, it's not really focusing, but this guy up here. There we go. Alright, so before we put the wheel back on, we got to cover some steps for new brakes, new gearing. We're replacing this 43 tooth sprocket with this much larger 60 tooth sprocket. Start there, we're going to replace the rotor on the other end for the new brake system. So next up, we're going to go with this oversized brake rotor from SS Moto. We need lots of stopping power on this thing. I'm going to get these all tightened up. So we got this brake kit from SS Moto. It is the 310 millimeter bracket. Let's see what's inside. We're going to be using these axle sliders as well. It goes on each side. They replace the factory chain adjustments. So the brake bracket is for the Brembo P34 caliper. And there she is. Pretty much sits like that. We run 4-piston caliper bracket with the adapter for the Brembo. Here we got the second slider. Put this guy into place. This system's pretty great because this axle slider will actually bolt this tab to the bracket, which double reinforces, which doesn't put as much stress on the tab that's welded to the swing arm, because now with all the force and stopping power of the brakes, all that stress isn't just directly on that tab. It actually uses this entire block here as reinforcement. Alright, so we got the brakes kind of half-heartedly mounted up here. Got the sprocket on. So before we can put this chain on, I decided to go with gearing change here. So the front sprocket is a 15. I'm going to go with this 14. I'm going to pop this old sprocket off, get this new one on, and then we'll work on getting the new chain on and completing this gearing setup. Let's swap this out. Boom, boom. Pull on through. So this is what we got so far. So just for reference, this was our old brake setup. Pretty small, dinky little caliper, but yeah, got rid of that. Got this ginormous rotor, SS Moto brake bracket, Brembo P34 caliper up here for the foot brake, and then we got two 4-piston calipers here and here that are going to tie together. They're going to jump together and they're going to run up to the handbrake. But these are Nissan calipers off of basically one of these bikes, a new gen Kawasaki ZX6 off the front brakes. We just move them to the back. We got the 320 millimeter rear brake rotor. SS Moto rear axle sliders here. Kind of protects things around here when it hits the ground. We've got our new chain and sprocket combo. We've got our shock spaced, sprocket up front. Yeah, that pretty much sums up all of that. I think the next thing we'll be moving on to is actually getting all these brakes, the lines ran, everything connected, maybe bled, get some new rotors on the front, and start working our way up. The next thing on our board is cooling system. So let's start working on the cooling system. and work our way up. We got a custom subframe. We've got some other goodies, lots of stuff. So stick around. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we're gonna be back with more very soon. So thanks again. See you guys soon.